Just in case you haven't heard, there's been a leak. It is official. We are getting a Squadron pack for the First Order that contains the TIE Whisper and 2 TIE First Order bombers. Welcome to Gold Squadron Shipyards. We're going to speculate on what these things are going to look like. So, what are we looking at? Well, it looks like it's a completed Squadron pack for the First Order. A lot of people have been a little upset that the only faction to not have a Squadron pack was the First Order, and it looks like here it is, confirmed, the TIE Whisper with the TIE FO bomber. Now, today, what we're going to do, we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to do some predictions on what we think these ships might look like in X-Wing, including building a dial, talking about the action bar, and also maybe what are some of the slots they're going to have, and also maybe some cool abilities or talk about some specific pilots that we think might show up in these ships. So first, let's go ahead and start by talking about the TIE FO bomber. You can see right here, there's 2 of them in the pack, and you can see these things do look pretty chunky. Now, a lot of my predictions for this come from the fact that we have an Imperial bomber that I feel like this is kind of based off of, right? You have the double fuselage there, and mind you, those wings do look awesome facing out. You know, I have to kind of base my predictions off of that and look at the conversion of the Imperial TIE Fighter to First Order. So when it comes to a stat line, we know that the Imperial bomber has 6 hull. And when we looked at the TIE Fighter, it had 3 hull, and when it went into First Order, it got +1 shield. I think we're going to end up kind of similar in that boat. We'll go from 6 health to 7 health. I think it will have at least 1 shield, but for funsies, I'm going to go ahead and say 2, so 5 hull and 2 shields. Now, when it comes to the slots, this is where we have to, again, take a look at that conversion from the TIE Fighter to the TIE FO fighter. I think that they're going to want to try to keep the costs pretty comparable. Right now in the competitive game, we don't get too much of the TIE bomber showing up, so they can't put this thing at a premium. Of course, we don't know how all the actions and all that will work out, but you know, we can have some guesses when we take a look at that. Now, when it comes to the Imperial bomber, it had a torpedo slot, 2 missile slots, a gunner slot, 2 payloads, and 1 modification slot. When it comes to the FO's upgrade slots, we know that because it's a sequel era ship, it's probably going to end up getting a tech slot because it has this new, you know, upgraded technology in there. But because of the transition from Empire to First Order, and me guessing that the prices are going to be pretty comparable, I don't think we can keep all those slots and also end up getting the use of shields plus a tech slot. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to have to lose some along the way. We have a couple of options here, and I'm just going to go ahead and take my shot in the dark. I think that we'll lose either both the missile slots or like a missile and torpedo slot. I think we're losing 2. Which ones they are, I don't know, but I'm going to go ahead and take a shot in the dark and say that we're losing the 2 missile slots. So you end up with tech, torpedo, gunner, 2 payloads, and a mod slot. When it comes to the other stats, I still think it's going to have a primary front arc that is 2 attack dice and 2 agility, similar to the Imperial bomber. When it comes to the action bar, I still am going to be basically borrowing from the Imperial bomber, but switching things up a little bit because we get more fancy technology. So I think we're going to end up with focus, lock, barrel roll, and this is where I'm changing it up. How about a boost into target lock? Because, you know, shake it up, right? Before the Empire had roll into lock, now we're going to add a boost there into target lock. And, of course, the reload action because it's a bomber and it's pretty thematic there. We want to be able to give that bomber its ordnance as long as it's living. When it comes to the dial, I did have a little bit of trouble deciding what I wanted to do here for my prediction because, again, we have essentially the Imperial bomber as a template, but when we saw the evolution of the Imperial TIE Fighter to FO, they ended up gaining an awesome thing. They ended up getting the 2 hard blue. Now, with my prediction of the bomber having boost into lock, I don't want to give it hard 2 blues because I think that'd be a little bit too good. So I'm going to go ahead and give it something that the Imperial bomber probably wish it had, and that is 1 banks that are blue and keeping everything else the same. All right, so now let's go ahead and talk about the TIE Whisper. Now, this is one that I had a lot of fun with kind of theorizing and guessing what this might look like when it comes to X-Wing 2nd Edition. Because a lot of us, we looked at the silencer and said, hey, isn't this just the same ship with a different cockpit? And yes, but also no. If you look really carefully, one of the things that you'll notice about it, it has a lot more guns. See them here, and it also has a turret on the bottom. So this is where I think some of the design space might have come for the designers. I think the TIE Whisper is going to be more like the TIE Interceptor than the TIE Silencer was. So because of that, it needs to be more fragile. It needs to have less upgrade slots, and we need to do other things to get the price down in order to actually differentiate these two ships from each other. So what do I think it's going to look like? So we did see in the Rise of Skywalker, we see a turret on the bottom of it. So I think the ship is going to end up having a turret arc for sure. And of course, it also has all those guns, at least the gun ports on it. So it has to have some type of front arc. Now, in order to make it, again, different from the TIE Silencer, this is what my guess is going to be for a stat bar. So I think it's going to have 2 attack dice in the front. Front full arc, 2 attack dice. I think it's also going to have a 2 attack dice turret. So as you can kind of see, I'm also building off of the TIE SF model just a little bit. But then, now I'll take care of the other stats here in a minute. When it comes to these 2 turret arcs working together, I kind of think we end up getting an SF gunner type ability when they're together. So something along the lines of combined weapons turret as a name, and it reads something along the lines of when an enemy ship is in your front arc and turret arc, you may add 1 attack dice to your roll. Of course, with the caveat that you can only put this turret in the front or back, because again, you end up blowing off your wings if you shoot it to the left or to the right. Now that we got that out of the way, let's take a look at what I think some of the other stats might end up looking like. It's an interceptor, so probably 3 agility dice. I mean, that makes sense there. When it comes to health, I'm thinking we end up getting, again, I'm gonna translate the interceptor, but into first order. We get 3 hull and 1 shield, and that's it. Those are all of our slots. Now, when it comes to the stat bar, we have to talk about Kylo Ren, because in the Silencer, he has 2 force, and he's the Tormented Apprentice then. But when we get to the Rise of Skywalker, he is now the supreme leader. We got to show that change. We got to show some type of evolution. So I think he's going to end up with 3 force charges. Is he going to have to pay for it? Of course, he's going to have to pay for it. Here is where I think some debate is going to come. What is his pilot skill going to be? Is it going to be 6 now, or is it still 5? I honestly think it's still going to be 5. The sequel movies are so close to each other. I can't in my heart say that I think Kylo Ren got better as a pilot going from The Last Jedi to The Rise of Skywalker. Now, increasing his strength in the Force, I think that is viable. That's why I said 3 force, because he did end up defeating Snoke. But when it comes to pilot skill, I think we still end up staying at initiative 5. Now, what about slots? This, again, I'm keeping it super simple because we have to keep the cost down. We can't put too many slots on there. I think this ship will have a tech slot because it's a sequel era ship, and 1 modification slot. The only other thing I can end up seeing that on there is if FFG wanted to, because remember, FFG is the one who actually designed this product. AMG hasn't designed product yet. But I think while FFG was designing this, if they wanted to give the ship some flavor, you could potentially end up giving it different configurations. So similar to the TIE Brute on that release, even though that's an Imperial ship, we had 2 different flavors of ship and how you could run that. In fact, really 3, because you could run it without the configuration, and then 2 other configurations that cost points but gave you different abilities. Could you potentially add something like, maybe activating those other laser ports that we end up seeing on the ship, and you maybe can get a 4th attack die somewhere. Maybe we end up being able to get an auto thrusters like ability, but for the cost of maybe an agility or maybe losing the shield or something like that. Some speculation there, but I think it could be really cool to see the ship being able to evolve with configurations, especially with the limited number of ships that the First Order has. Now, what about the dial? The dial is an interceptor, right? So it has to be fast. You expect 2 hard blues. It has to be that way. So I took a look at the silencer dial. Is the TIE Whisper faster than the TIE Silencer? And my heart says yes. And because of that, I think we are going to have the return of the 3-bank blue. In first edition, we had a stress clearing maneuver that was a 3-bank, and the silencer lost it. Going into second edition, I think it returns right here because a ball is more aerodynamic than a rectangle. That's my guess there. When it comes to the actions, I think we need to take a look at the TIE SF. I've already focused the ship's ability on the turret, and I think we're going to go ahead and essentially copy paste the TIE SF's action bar with the caveat that we're adding a boost action and say it has focus, evade, lock, roll, and boost all into white. Rotate. Thanks for watching. Remember, we are live on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. You can see all those times down below, and I'm looking forward to talking to you live. If you're not a part of our Discord community and you want to talk about all these things, maybe give me your speculation on this upcoming pack, feel free, join our Discord. Link is in the description down below. And lastly, as always, thank you so much to our patrons. You guys are the ones that make this happen. Thanks for watching. Gold Squadron out. Thank you to ISO, Danko, Baffle, Trojan, Prophet, Shadow, Tycho, Spice, Raider, Lancer, Fallen, and Row 6, our Grand Admiral patrons, and all of our Gold Squadron patrons and community members. Thank you so much for your support. Gold Squadron out.